So, congratulations. Of course, with the Dutch premiere of Voodoo Waltz, but Imre, it's her birthday today. It's 35 years. How is it to
Don't say it out loud. Don't say it out.
How is it for you to celebrate your birthday with this déjà voodoo, this pilgrimage, this performance? How is it?
I mean, it's just another day, I guess, but I'm just happy to be celebrating with everyone here in the audience, obviously. But it's wonderful to see them out here. And yeah, I don't know, it's not more different than any other day when I come to see a show. But it's nice, it's good.
And the text of this performance, the text started with you, Imre, because it was on your desktop, Voodoo Waltz, the novel, that strange novel of Janja Rakush.
Yeah.
What fascinates you about Voodoo Waltz that you both took it as the starting point for this performance?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I think we were both looking for a book that gave us enough freedom and space for also dance to exist. Of course, we're working with text and movement, and why say something when you can dance it, and why dance it when you can say it. And we felt like that this book was written in such an unusual way that it gave us enough freedom to play with the wording, also because she wrote it in a very rhythmical way as well. So that interested me, but also all the themes inside of the book as well, that were, about the role of religion, the challenges of modern society, identity, consumerism, and there's so many things inside of the book itself that we had so many ways to put a loop on it and find different angles to it, how to approach it and how to give it a form, with dance and text.
And Marne, why did you want to work with dance and text this time? This is the first time?
Yeah, it was the first time for us. Well, there's a limitation in dance in the sense that you can't say everything explicitly. And that's, of course, the pleasure that you have with text, is that you can, in one monologue, you can say many things in a way. Dance is beautiful. It is an abstract form of communication. But it's not the most easy form to communicate something. It's a very strange microphone. And text, you can do that with text, which is great. So that's what we love to play with. And of course, it's not just text; it's acting really that makes the text come alive. And that's something that we really enjoyed working on with these three fantastic actors. And it was a pleasure.
Actors. When did you hear that you could work with Pierre Bokma?
This was throughout the first initial talks that we had with Schauspielhaus Bochum. He came up, and of course we were delighted to see that he was an option for us to work with.
An option?
Yeah, he's, we have a tableau and ensemble, but when they mentioned, okay, Pierre could be one of those actors that we could work with, because he's extremely busy.
Yeah. First needs to be available,
yes,
obviously.
of course, yeah.
And is he easy to work with?
Yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah.
And Imre
he's great to work with, but also he has a very busy agenda, so he couldn't be there every day, all day with us. So we really had to, work with him in the moment that we could get him and take everything out of it, also of those moments. But yeah, a wonderful and beautiful person to work with on stage and off stage. Yeah.
And that character, Orphan, he is the main character of this performance. How did you develop with him the performance of this character?
Well, we first had to really understand the character. The character is actually written in a very different way. He's supposed to be 28 years old and has, in a way, very different facets than what we brought out on stage. But what we thought was really interesting was
So Orphan is 28?
28 years old in the book.
In the book?
Yeah.
And Pierre Bokma is 68.
And Wilhelm's character, that's played by William Cooper, is actually Wilhelmina, who's actually a woman. So we've changed things around. And you, for example, also have Stacey and Jackson, who plays two characters. Normally those are two separate characters in the book. So it was for us really a sort of puzzle to figure out how can we work with what we have, but also take different sort of elements out of the book that we want to highlight. And we thought it's very interesting to...
And what do you want to highlight? What do you want to highlight?
What's interesting about Orphan is that this is a person who is looking for radical freedom, in a sense, who is trying to break free from his past, from his history, as well as from his background. He's adopted. He tells the story on the bench where he leaves his home when he is just barely 18, because he always had the suspicion that his parents might not be his. And in a way, Orphan is identity in this piece. It's someone looking for their identity through their work, through those boundaries that he continues to cross to make a living, but at the same time also lets go of a part of himself that is very difficult, very confrontational. And it's a tragic character. And in the end, he kills his father. And father, of course, has bigger symbolism. There's many stages of fathers, of course, as well as this sort of religious entity. And he becomes God in a way. He takes it upon himself to kill another human being, who is also the metaphysical, but also his literal father. And in that, he finds radical freedom. In that, he finds this moment where he can finally shed his past, finally let go of all this baggage that he has been carrying with him. And
but also not wanting to change one single thing, you know. It's so, when it comes back to illness, what do we say is an abnormal thing to be or a normal thing to be? Especially when we look at certain illnesses like epilepsy and other neurodivergence. When our brains are wired differently, he says in the end, well, I don't want to change anything about me. This is perfect the way I am.
Illness is not an issue. Yeah. That was never the issue. Yeah, so that's why he says that.
And epilepsy, all the characters are homeless or searching for identity or searching for radical freedom, but they are all also have that brain damage, that auras, that epileptic attacks.
Yeah.
Why was that interesting for you to have that in a performance?
Yeah, Janja wrote, so she did this pilgrimage, and she wrote basically different characters that represent epilepsy in different walks of life. So she didn't want to just sort of tackle it through one lens. She wanted to create many characters which it can be viewed. For example, you have somebody that's extremely religious, another person that is at the height of her career as a lawyer, but still deals with epilepsy at that sort of level. And of course you have Orphan. You have another character who is Brother, who is completely evaporated into movement, basically. And we thought that was a beautiful take on illness, that it's not a singular way of looking at things. There is a way to cope with it. And you see that all of these characters in their own right are coping with this idea of illness. And we thought that was a very beautiful take on it. And it's something that you don't often see. And what is so interesting about the book, and I think that's what we were so drawn to, is that when she writes, and you see it maybe back in the piece as well, sometimes it's super metaphysical. She's living in this very crazy realm. It's very poetic, and you have all these Bible quotes
and Facebook messages.
Yes, and then other times it's very grounded, and she gets very explicit with the language, and it's almost hard to read because it's so visceral the way she writes.
And very religious with all the Bible quotes and the daily Jesus app. And
but I think she wrote the book like it is a seizure, and I think you will only understand what that is and where you maybe fly to unconsciously or not when you have it. And it's also, she speaks about like a multi-dimensional portal, and this is also where creativity lays.
And a déjà vu.
Yeah, so epilepsy works on the part where, if I understand it correctly, is also nestled in the part of your brain where memory is. Yeah. So sometimes when they have a seizure or when they're in aura, which is that moment right before the seizure, memories can come up. and they can almost control sometimes that creative energy that is used. That's why you have Vincent van Gogh that made these incredible paintings using that sort of creativity that he got. There's really a lot of artists actually with epilepsy that had a lot of success, and Janja used that as well.
You don't?
No, we don't have...
We have other things.
No, yeah, I have ADHD, she has ADD, what else do we have?
You have?
Yeah, and that's also what they call apparently now neurodivergent, but it just means that your brain works slightly different, which I think actually for our profession is super helpful.
Super helpful that your brain is working divergently. Yes.
Yeah, because I can super focus and then I can just, sort of really go
and make
go
a trip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let me say first that I never heard such a beautiful performance of Jimi Hendrix' Voodoo Child, which is very beautiful. I think that Amos Bental made that. Correct. I see. Yeah. Well, I'm very curious about the process you used to develop this production, because I see very complex production. I also see a very complex, you are using a very complex dance language. I do not see one particular style, but I see many styles in which each part has some sort of its own style. So I ask myself, how did you develop this production? Did you wrote the choreography fully, or did you give the dancers a part in developing it, maybe using improvisations or something like that?
That's a good question. I mean, we have many tools to create. I think with this particular piece, we always are very in close collaboration with the dancers. We always are interested to see what they can offer, or how they meet the ideas that we present to them. But I think for us, the point of departure of this piece was really the book, and first analyzing what are the parts that are really necessary on stage, to put on stage, to create a narrative that somewhat we can follow.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, of course.
The book is basically written in hours, so that helped us a lot in taking the hours that we felt were necessary. And also, this is kind of like how we chaptered the work as well. And this is maybe also what you see, that every hour is basically either a dialogue, a monologue, or a chapter of movement.
So there are 36 hours, so you both choose.
Yeah, the hours that we thought were necessary to tell the story. Of course, we couldn't do everything. We really had to cut a lot, change a lot. We had to transcribe whole parts. We had to also translate it into German, which was a huge task.
And is it all choreographed, or is there a space for improvisation?
No, it's all choreographed. In this case, this performance doesn't really have, I think, proper improvisation. Yeah, no, it's all choreographed.
And so the duet, the end of was Chloe and Ramon, and it's more or less, it's also part of his father murder. How did you create this when he asked?
That's a good question. I mean, we went from the text. We understood the form that we wanted to work with, so we didn't want to create too many narrative displays in the piece. We only do it twice, where the text and the physical language are doing the same. We didn't want to do that too many times because it becomes a gimmick. So it becomes an illustration, exactly. So what we try to do is save it also for the end. We first figured out what's the text say. And we had to really limit the amount of words. As you can see, Pierre only every now and then throws in a sentence, because the body needs to let those sentences resonate and bring you to the next part of the text. So the text was actually the point of departure there.
I think also was interesting for us, since you probably also have heard that the text can be quite violent or in your face, especially the sex scenes with Orphan. What you see in the last, or the second sex scene, we call it, it's basically the contradiction of something that is quite strong in the text, but something beautiful with two humans on stage. So we were always very careful in what are we saying and what are we showing.
But the dance language is really yours. If you follow the work of Marne and Imre, you recognize immediately how the dancers are moving. You illustrated one time, Imre, that you said there are 1,000 pieces in the body that can move.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, every scene and every moment on stage needs something else. If you go to the Tender Breast with the club scene, you have like a big group dance scene, which needs, you cannot let dancers deconstruct their body and all look, exactly the same. So then you go for more clean cut movements. So that maybe it looks like a different dance language, but initially it's really coming from the same source. And then in other moments we break the body in part through a million pieces, and then it looks like something else. Yeah.
Are there other questions or remarks? You can throw the mic. I guess you can. There. Yes. Yes.
Scared.
Yes, there is he.
I hope the theater isn't short for
Hello? It's meant to be strong. Yes. Okay.
Hello. Would you have realized this without text, and would the audience understood that?
Would you realize this without text? Would it be possible to create the same without text? That I understand that correct? I don't. I like to believe you wouldn't. How do you express capitalism? I mean, there's ways to talk about it or show it in a very sort of form. I think it was necessary. And I mean, as you can see, this show has a lot of layers to it. It doesn't just talk about one thing. And I think for us to be able to flip the page and really go into the next scene, I think the text really helped to establish that. I think with dance, that would be much harder to do. So I think for this particular work, it was essential, yeah.
I think also to be able to keep dance abstract without making a story ballet or I think text was needed there to support the themes and the things we wanted to say.
This was for you?
Yeah, it is the first time that we've
Are you going to do it again?
Yeah.
We hope so, yeah.
Sure.
It's great. Yeah, we love it. Yeah.
Other questions?
Is there, with your dancers, because it's such a unique language, is there a short course they have to follow to start this?
Is there a short course to follow to learn the dance language of Marne and Imre?
We train the dancers. I mean, with this one, we didn't have too much time. We call that conditioning. So normally we give class and then we do sort of exercises to condition the dancers to move the way we enjoy movement or give them ideas of how to approach their physicality. The luck with this group is that these are phenomenal dancers that are so well trained that they really understand a lot by just giving them the right wording.
Because they're also old colleagues from NDT.
Exactly, we've worked with quite a few of them already, so they really understand where we come from. So I think we were really lucky in that sense. But sometimes when we go to a dance company that hasn't worked with us before, we take much more time to condition them and to make sure that whatever they will offer in the process is in line with what we're looking for, basically.
And they are dancers, but they are also theatrical. They can speak. Boston had a speech, a very funny speech as a taxi driver. So, was it the first time that you use him as it also with text?
Yes, in this regard, yes. But the beauty is that they are very experienced with all types of theater and dance forms. Most of these dancers are. So it's not necessarily new ground. I think for Boston and Emily in this case, it was probably new in the sense that it was also doing text inside of a theater piece with other actors, which of course is different than when we are just doing it in our own form or in our own sort of performance. But
Are there other questions? remarks. Then maybe, because everyone wants to have a drink, I have a last question, I guess. I have a last because this is about searching for radical freedom. Is it a hopeful performance, or is it more tragic, a pessimistic performance?
It's a very good question. I'm still trying to figure this out. You know, every time I see the work, something else comes to me.
I thought for the second time, and I read it completely different than when I was in Bochum and I was at the first
exactly.
time.
I think there is something sometimes beautiful in the tragic. There is sometimes you have to go through hardship to understand what beauty also is. And I think in the case of Orphan, he had to do the most unspeakable thing to free himself. And in that lies a beauty. So, I don't know, I hope it's not one-dimensional. I hope that people can latch on to different layers of the show and sometimes see its beauty and sometimes see its ugly and
to free yourself from traumas.
Yes, and the freedom of it, and I don't know.
I think it's both. You know, there's a lot of, happy moments in the work, but also a lot of sad moments and tragic moments. But I think it definitely should just be a reflection to your own life as well. Of like, how can we keep our minds open? How can we keep, even though we're conditioned and structured or whatever the rules and the borders that we create, for ourselves as humans, how can we keep finding different perspectives and looking at things from a different angle again, keeping this open and not,
I think that is more necessary than ever, keeping our minds open.
Yeah.
So, thanks a lot. May I have one applause from Marne and Imre van Opstal. Thank you very much.